If you're here to speak on the public hearing, if you haven't signed up, the sign-up sheet is at the podium. We're going to take it up in about 5 minutes.
I'm gonna just let her know you gonna do it.
It's fine. If she's fine with that, I'm fine with that.
Oh, he's got it. Oh, yeah, we got it in our thing, packet. Okay, but Marcus is gonna offer this way. I see what you're saying now. Thank you. AJ?
Yes.
I was in another meeting. I just want you to be aware.
All right. What's up, man? I'm all right. Hey, you know, it's just weird. I said, it's happening. Hey. You.
We paid money to get to do that.
Hey, I don't think any need you.
Doing nothing. Now, tell me what you're doing with it.
Well, we're playing what we can.
Here to the country now, plus
We're trying to. I need to tell you something. Our foot
that's
Put it on up there.
yeah, that's very straight down. You know, I can keep it straight down there. Try and get it on the screen. So I do.
What do you say?
How do I get it?
I can get it on the screen with me foot. So I kept it for the other day. I played it. 12 or 13 holes. Up to 12 or 13 holes I played.
I'm trying to see you earlier, but you had a mass of people. Yeah. How are you? Everything going in your favor, your bills?
I used to put number house real slow. Birmingham. A little faster. Hell, Butler, you know that, right? Oh, yeah. You know. It's not, you can be a little aggressive.
Chairman probably said, I've had enough of her. Lock the door. Hello, everybody. I'm good. Like that rust color on you, it's pretty. Yeah.
told that I'm getting rusty. What you got up here today?
Welcome to Education Policy. I've got 1:30. If everyone will silence their phones, and I'm going to ask Representative Fincher to open us in prayer, please.
If you would, please bow your heads. Our Father, we thank you for this afternoon, for this day, for the privilege of serving the people of Alabama. As we come to deliberate and to hear cases presented today, may you give us wisdom and the forbearance to be open and honest in our answers and responses. Be with us, watch over us, and guide us. Now we ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Clerk will call a roll.
Representative Collins.
Here.
Representative Baker.
Here.
Representative Drummond. Representative Daniels. Representative DuBose. Representative Estes. Representative Fincher. Representative Gidley. Representative Gray. Representative Holk Jones. Representative Morris. Representative Paramore. Representative Pascal. Representative Smith. Representative Woods. A quorum's present.
Thank you very much. We are going to move into this. I want to remind all our committee members about how we're working on being concise and brief in our comments and not repeating issues and just sticking to new information. So that's just a little friendly reminder. First up is House Bill 30. This is very similar to Representative McCampbell's bill that we discussed last time, and he had presented two bills with two different name choices, and we went back to the other one, so it was the easiest to amend, and I'll let you tell about your bill, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members of the committee. House Bill 30 is the same bill as House Bill 218, which we had on last week. The difference is in the change of the terminology. Last week, if you recall, I said the terminology that we were changing were from fully supported to non-supported. This week, though, we are just using the figures and the numbers that are actually in the bill and that are actually in this bill, period. And so instead of saying fully supported or non-supported, and instead of saying felon or non-felon schools, what we're using is the term the lowest 6% schools and the highest 94% schools. So that's the basic change. There's nothing else that we're doing to the bill. Thank you. If there are any questions.
I believe we have an amendment.
Mr. Chairman, and with the sponsors' blessings, I'd like to offer an amendment. Most of these are on page 2 of the amendment, and it's replacing.
And you have them in your packet. Yeah. Excuse me.
No problem. Thank you. Replacing lines 29 and 30 on page 2 with the following: to amend sections 16, 6D-3, 16-6D-4, 16-6D-6, and 16-6D/8, replacing those. Also, lines 32 through 33 on the same page with the following: Code of Alabama 1975 relating to the Alabama Accountability Act of 2013. And also lines 40 through 41 on page 2 with the following: in section 1, sections 16-6D/3 and 16-16D-4 and 16-6D-6. Also, it would also delete lines 45 through 135 on pages 2 through 5 in their entirety.
Thank you. I hear
I make a motion on the amendment if that's
do I hear a second?
necessary.
Motion by Representative Paramore, second by Representative Gidley. To clarify some of the dashes, the sponsor had included both the A through F school grading bill with the Accountability Act, but F is based on several different indicators, and an F is an F. So that's what's deleted, and that section, which was 16-62, is deleted. So that was the deletion, and then it goes back to the original language. That, I think, clarifies. I'm glad to answer any questions or the sponsor about that amendment. If so, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have House Bill 30 as amended. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Representative Holt-Jones.
Thank you, Representative. This is just a general, I was asked a little while ago, since we're changing the name of the definition, or will it affect any other bills that are already on the books?
No, ma'am, it will not. We are not deleting that section 1662C. We're not deleting it, not repealing it. We're just not including it in this bill.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you,
I'd
Madam.
entertain a motion. A motion for a favorable report for House Bill 30 as amended by Representative Morris, second by Representative Holt-Jones. We had discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Good afternoon, committee. I am here today to present HB 261, the Women's Sports Protection Bill, that amends a bill that was passed in 2021, which protects female athletes in public schools grades K through 12. This bill takes those same protections to higher education 2- and 4-year public institutions. This bill is actually very simple. It designates that athletes will compete on teams according to their biological sex. To read the bill specifically, this bill states that an intercollegiate or intramural athletic team or sport sponsored by a 2-year or 4-year institution of higher education that is designated for females, women, or girls shall not be open to a biological male. Also, it states that an intercollegiate or intramural athletic team or sport sponsored by a public 2- or 4-year institution of higher education that is designated for males, men, or boys shall not be open to a biological female. Nothing in this subsection shall be construed to restrict the eligibility of any student to participate on any intercollegiate or intramural athletic team or sport designated as co-ed or mixed. This bill also protects the universities by stating that a governmental entity, licensing or accrediting organization or athletic association or organization may not file a complaint, open an investigation, or take any other adverse action against a public K-12 or public 2- or 4-year school. Over the last 3 years, 16 states have passed similar bills protecting same-sex teams through the collegiate level. Idaho, Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi, Montana, West Virginia, Tennessee, South Dakota, Iowa, Oklahoma, Arizona, Kentucky, South Carolina, Louisiana, Wyoming, Kansas, and North Dakota have all passed these bills. We have had 3 years to review the legislation passed in other states. There have been no repercussions or penalties to the states or institutions that passed this legislation. There have been no economic loss, no boycotts, no loss of NCAA events. We have had 3 years with no adverse consequences. In fact, we have well over 100 NCAA events occurring between 2021 and 2026 in states where sports protection laws have been passed. It should also be noted that Alabama Community College System already follows this guidance for sports teams based on biological sex within their own sports conference. And I've had a great deal of support from the University of Alabama regarding support of our bill. If you have probably heard a lot about Title IX in the news lately, and the protections and opportunities it affords women are an important part of this legislation. Title IX was passed over 50 years ago in 1972 to eliminate obstacles women face in higher education. The surprising effect was a tremendous expansion of women's sports. In 1972, only 15% of collegiate athletes were women. Now, in 2023, almost half, 44% of collegiate athletes are women. We have over 215,000 women competing in college sports. Forcing women to compete against biological men would reverse decades of progress that women have made for equal opportunities in athletics. Having separate teams for men and women is the time-tested way to ensure that women have the opportunity to showcase their talents and be champions. Science tells us that similarly gifted and trained males are bigger, faster, and stronger than females. They have larger hearts and lungs, denser bones, and stronger muscles. No amount of hormone therapy can undo all those advantages. Even the world's best female Olympic athletes would lose to literally thousands of boys and men on any given day. Every male given a spot on a women's team displaces a deserving woman. Women deserve a safe and level playing field. We must protect the fairness, safety, and competitiveness and integrity of women's sports.
Thank you, Representative DuBose. Because we have a public hearing, I think I'm going to hold the questions to the end, and that way you can address or they can address
All of
any
them.
questions
Okay.
at the end.
Thank you.
For the public hearing, which we're going to open now, we have 5 proponents and 1 opponent, so I'm going to divide those. First up, I'm going to call Mr. Majority Leader Scott Stothagen.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and committee members. I think it's no surprise in this room of who I'm in favor of in this bill. I think in the past we've done some tremendous efforts in protecting women's rights. I think at the end of the day, it's hard for me to understand an argument that you can tell me a man can compete against a woman in a fair situation, and you can't. It's physically impossible for a man to compete against a woman and for it to be a level playing field. We're talking about girls that start from the age of 5 and they work really hard throughout their life to obtain a scholarship. This is what we're talking about protecting. For my daughter, for your daughter, and I am in huge favor of this bill. Thank you for your efforts and your courage, because this is not an easy bill. And Madam Chairman, thank you for the time.
You're welcome. I didn't say you had 2 minutes, but you kept it well under that. So I would like to say thank you for that, and my concise words are working. So good job, good job. Second up, I'd like to call Matt Sharp as a proponent.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Matt Sharp. I'm Senior Counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. Our law firm represents female athletes in West Virginia, Connecticut, Idaho, and other states in federal court who have personally lost out on championships and other athletic opportunities to males who are permitted to compete on female teams. I just wanted to briefly address some of the legal issues. This bill fully aligns with both the U.S. Constitution and federal law, including Title IX. Federal courts have long recognized that it's constitutional to provide separate programs based on biological sex, including sports teams, locker rooms, and even single-sex schools. For example, Justice Stevens from the U.S. Supreme Court explained, without separate athletic teams for males and females, quote, there would be a substantial risk that boys would dominate the girls' programs and deny them an equal opportunity to compete in interscholastic events. We saw that happen to our clients in Connecticut. Or as Judge Lagoa explained in a recent decision out of the 11th Circuit, which has jurisdiction over Alabama, quote, commingling of the biological sexes in female athletics arena would significantly undermine the benefits that separate sports teams afford to female student athletes. Finally, although the Biden administration has pushed a radical and unlawful interpretation of Title IX that redefines sex to include gender identity, a federal court recently enjoined the U.S. Department of Education from forcing several states, including Alabama, from complying with this unlawful interpretation. The court found that the Department of Education's interpretation of Title IX conflicted with Supreme Court precedent, and that the department ignored the limited reach of what the Supreme Court had said. Simply put, there is no need for Alabama to fear any repercussions from the federal government for passing this bill. The Constitution and federal law fully support Alabama's efforts to protect fairness in women's sports. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Next, I'll call Jeff Walker, and he's an opponent.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Walker. I'm from Auburn. I'm here today to speak out against HB 261. I was confused on the agenda for this legislative session to see this bill. I'm confused about what you're trying to fix here in Alabama. Back in 2021, as was pointed out, Governor Ivey already coldly signed into law a trans sports ban when not one instance or complaint of a transgender athlete could be presented. I know who you're trying to target, but I'm not seeing what you're trying to fix. We should stop trying to pretend protecting sports is what this is about. You're trying to keep transgender youth isolated and secluded. You're trying to further the public trial of transgender people, making sure they're not accepted by raising up a pretend problem. Show me where there's a problem in the state of Alabama at any level of a transgender youth in sports. Show me where that transgender person has an advantage. Demonstrate how a trans girl or trans boy would be accepted if you forced them to play sports the way outlined in this bill. You can't, and that's the point. You want them to feel unwelcomed and isolated, preventing them from participating. At the college level, the NCAA already requires a transgender woman to be taking treatments to lower her testosterone levels. Interestingly, a transgender man, which you would now require to compete in women's sports, would not have that restriction. If they've been taking treatments to raise their testosterone levels, would you consider this a level playing field? Or would you expand this to prevent them from having medically approved treatments, which I already know the answer to that question? Stop wasting time and energy of this legislative body to introduce bills and fear around issues that don't really exist.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
Next, I call Jasmine Staworski, and a proponent.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Jasmine Staworski. I'm a sophomore student at the University of South Alabama. As a woman who grew up playing sports and continued to play sports all throughout high school, I feel very strongly about protecting women in sports. Sports were my happy place. Sports brought me a community of people who were always there for me, friends I love more than anything still to this day, and also helped me to live the healthy, active lifestyle that I needed to when I was in high school. Whether I was on the basketball court or on the softball field, I was in my happy place each and every single time I stepped on. Being surrounded by my teammates who became some of my best friends in the whole world while playing a game I love was an unforgettable type of joy. Reflecting on my time in high school athletics makes me think not only of the joy it brought me, but also the intense competition I faced in games. I went to a small private school. When we played basketball, we played against much larger public schools. They had much larger teams, and due to this, they had girls with much higher skill level than most of our players. I remember being so nervous to play certain schools because a girl they had was going to be going D1 soon. If I was nervous to play against biological females, I could not imagine competing against someone who is a biological male. I would be terrified. At my university, gender identity is already a clear problem. My group, Turning Point USA, showed Matt Walsh's What is a Woman? This movie showing caused protest on campus for many of people in support of the transgender movement. If simply showing a movie caused a riot on campus, I cannot imagine the amount of biological males who would want to come and compete in women's sports at my university. Statistically, biological males are stronger than women. It's just simple science. The fact that a biological male feels like he is a female does not change the fact that he is biologically made to be stronger than me and any other woman for that matter. Allowing males to compete in women's sports would reverse every single step that has been made towards equality for women. The competition will never be fair again. I urge each of you to pass this bill. I leave you with this. What if this was your daughter? Would you want her opportunities to be taken away?
Thank you, Mr. Staworski. Next, I'll call Danny Duval, proponent.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I speak in favor in support of this bill and its author. I would like to commend this committee for their courage. In the not too near future, we'll be discussing from this microphone what it means to be human. And I would like to speak now for the underserved in the state of Alabama. Any civil and benevolent government always has an ear to the marginalized, those who have no voice, those who have no microphone. I'd like to stand here in support of the human body. The human body. The human body has no ability to speak for itself outside of the mind. And to divorce the body from the human mind is to leave the human mind, the sole spokesperson. The body should have a voice. This bill declares that the human body and the distinctives of the male and female body are absolutely important to the future of our society and our state and our world. If you know what I'm saying is a body speaks the way it is anatomically created, its physicality, and it says, this is what I am. Let's not turn a deaf ear to the voice of the part of the human condition that cannot speak for itself, the human body. I am here in support of this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Duval. Last, we call Becky Garrettson as a proponent.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'll be brief. I put on your desk a flyer. It's funny, it used to be really obvious that women and men are built differently. We are biologically different. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of very important facts. Men have broader shoulders and larger feet and hands, all of which grant advantage in sports like volleyball, swimming, basketball. On average, men are physically stronger than women. Men have 66% more upper body muscle than women and 50% more lower body muscle. Men have greater amounts of fast twitch muscle fibers, which gives them the ability to be explosive when they leave the starting gate. They have higher hemoglobin levels, allowing their body to oxygenate muscles more quickly and more efficiently. They're taller. This helps them in volleyball and basketball. These are things that we appreciate and we want to protect. So I thank you, Representative DuBose, for bringing this bill. Eagle Forum is definitely in support, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Ms. Garrettson. That closes our public hearing. If our sponsor, Ms. DuBose, will go back, and if you've got questions, if you'll let me know, we will take questions at this time. Are there any questions for the sponsor?
Madam Chairman, if there's no questions, I'd like to make a motion for a favorable report.
Second that.
We have a motion for a favorable report from Representative Estes, a second from Representative Gidley. We don't always vote at a public hearing, but we have done it before when it seems appropriate. So we are going to vote today. Are there any questions before we vote? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bill is given a favorable report. Thank you, Representative DuBose. Next, I'll call up Senate Bill 52. It's Senator Orr's bill, and our Vice Chair Baker is going to carry that for him.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I carry this bill on behalf of Senator Orr in regards to a situation that arose, I understand, directly in his district. And what this involves, it involves the local school system's ability to be able to provide for training for the staff and also the care for the students in regards to certain medical conditions. One of those being that's already in the code regards diabetes. So this is simply mirroring much of that or coupling with that another situation that arose that is somewhat similar in nature, and that is regarding adrenal insufficiency. Now, I've heard just going back to some of the teaching, coaching days, I've heard about adrenaline and such, but I didn't exactly know what adrenal insufficiency was, so I did have to do a little research just to somewhat bring myself up to speed on this. It is contained in the bill, the bottom of the bill, but adrenal insufficiency means a hormonal disorder that occurs when the adrenal glands do not produce enough hormones. And so I would also draw your attention to this. All this does within the bill is if you look on page 4, on page 4, there's going to be several places where what you will see is that what has been identified as the appropriate training and who would be administering that through the local school system, or in regards to that responsibility falling on the local school systems providing the training for conditions such as diabetes. This is simply coupling with that then this additional medical condition of adrenal insufficiency. So that would be at the very top of the page. That's actually on lines 77 and 78, just to draw your attention to that. So it mentions diabetic condition, or you'll see underlined there, or an adrenal insufficiency. It does contain, it also has that same language contained on line 83 as well. So it's simply coupling with that another medical condition that would be treated much in the same way in regards to a local school system providing the training, and also for the care of students that have a medical condition that falls into one of those two categories. It does also mention it there on lines 90, 91, 92. It just states about medical condition, now referring to that as either diabetic or the adrenal insufficiency. I'll be glad to answer any questions going forward.
Are there any questions for Representative Baker? Do I hear a motion? Motion by Representative Wood to give the bill a favorable report. Second by Representative Fincher. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The bill, Senate Bill 52, is given a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee.
We
Thank
are
you so much.
adjourned.